And let's save this as Maya Lab 7 on our H drive. So save scene as, make sure you're in the H drive. Okay. All right. So I want to talk to you guys about how to utilize 2D curves in Maya and use them in your 3D modeling. Okay. So we're going to create a tree from scratch, and we're going to start by using this little pencil curve tool. So at the very top, you have your poly modeling menu. Go to the curves menu, okay, and then click on this pencil curve tool. And this is a 2D like pencil tool like you would think it is. So it works best when you don't draw in the perspective view, but you in fact draw in one of the other views. So we're going to go into our front view. All right, and let's go ahead and just draw like the baseline of what sort of tree we want to do. So I'm just going to start drawing, and I kind of am going to do like some sort of curve like this. All right, so this is going to be where my tree starts. This is the bottom of my trunk, and this is one of the branches coming off of it. So draw a line kind of like this. Make sure that the starting point is like sort of straight up and down, so that it's actually like a tree trunk coming out of the ground, and our ground would be right here. So again, I went to the curves tools, and I clicked on the pencil curve tool. Yeah. So I'm going to delete this curve that I just made just so I can show you guys again. You're going to go to your front view. We're going to grab our pencil curve tool, and we're just going to draw something like this. Okay, so kind of like an S. It's okay if yours is like that, right? Like it's cool. You can make this however you want it to look, but the main thing is that when you're first starting it, you want it to be kind of perpendicular to the ground. Okay. So once you have your curve in here, we are going to use the soft selection mode. Okay, so it's hotkey B to turn on soft selection. You get this little soft select mode is on. Tap B to turn it off. So you can hit hotkey B again to turn it off. So just hit it once until you get this soft select mode is on. Awesome. And then we're going to click on our curve, and we're going to do right click menu and control vertex. Okay. So nurbs, curves, they have different controls than actual 3D models. Rather than just a regular vertice, we have these control vertex option. And these vertex, like control module things, they sit outside of the actual curve. So I'm going to go ahead and click on one of them. Because I have soft selection, it's kind of rainbowy. If you don't have soft selection on, hotkey B, it would just be yellow, right? So make sure you have soft selection on so yours looks like mine. Okay, so that looks good. And then I'm going to come into my side view, and I'm going to go ahead and move, using the move tool, right, and soft selection, some of this geometry out so that it kind of curves from a side perspective. All right, and the cool thing about the soft selection is it's moving a lot of my geometry at once. If I don't have soft selection on, it's moving like an individual point at once. So I don't really want to do that right now. I want soft selection, hotkey B again for soft selection, to kind of affect a lot of my curve at once. Okay, so now you should have a curve that starts, you know, going perpendicular to this grid, and then it kind of curves organically around. Yeah? So remember again, when I told you guys, most of the time you use nurbs in Maya, or curves, nurbs and curves in Maya, they're for organic modeling. This is just a little tidbit into organic modeling for you guys, so you can get a sense for that as well. Okay, once you're done, once you're happy with where your curve has ended up, hit hotkey Q again, and we're going to hit hotkey B again. We don't want soft select on anymore. And we're going to just choose object mode. That's fine. And we just have that curve selected. Now we're going to go back to our poly modeling menu and then click on the cylinder. We want to bring in a cylinder. All right. And we're going to go to our poly cylinder thing right here in the attribute editor, right? Poly cylinder 1. And we're going to go ahead and change the number of subdivisions down to 6. Okay, so you guys should have a cylinder in the center of your scene. You brought in a cylinder and change the number of subdivisions to 6. Subdivision caps, change that to 0. Okay, so again, you brought in a cylinder. just click a cylinder, right? And then you came over here to the attribute editor, polycylinder 2 now for me. For you, it's polycylinder 1. Change the number of subdivisions to 6. The number of subdivision caps to 0, okay? So basically we have our hexagonal prism now. So you should only have one of these. In our outliner, let's just call this trunk, okay? And we have our curve 1, curve 2. Curve 1, I'm going to call this base, or tree base, okay? Just so I know which line that is. Ignore my curve 2. You guys shouldn't have a second curve. I just brought that in so I could show you steps again. Okay, so you should have one curve, right? And one cylinder that has 6 subdivisions and no caps. All right, now we are going to go right-click menu, face selection mode, and click on the top face of our cylinder. All right, so you just clicked on the top face of your cylinder. Now go right-click menu, object mode, and click on your curve. Okay, so you have your tree base selected. Now you're going to do right-click menu, face mode on top of your cylinder, but you're not going to click on anything. And if you'll notice, in the outliner, I have my tree base curve selected, and I have the top face of my trunk cylinder selected. So we have the right stuff selected. Let's move on. Okay, we're going to continue on. So this is what you should have selected. Hopefully you're following along. Now let's do Control E for extrude, or you can just press the extrude button over here. So Control E. Okay, and it should look something weird like this. Yeah? So what we want to do is we want to increase the number of divisions. So this poly extrude face menu will pop up for you. Okay, we did Control E to extrude, right? Or you just press the extrude button. And then we're going to click and drag and increase the number of subdivisions until it kind of matches our curve. But you don't want anything like this to happen where it like inverts the geometry. So don't go too far, but just kind of go something kind of like that, like as far as you can without it messing with the geometry too much. Okay? So do you guys need to see that again? Yeah, let me show you guys that again. So after you're done moving it, hit hotkey Q to get out of it. Okay? And then I'll show you the next step. I'm going to show you guys how that works again on this one real quick, for those of you who missed it. Okay. So we did Control E for extrude, right? And it does something wonky, kind of like this. And then you get this little pop-up, poly extrude. And we're going to use this little slider on top of the word divisions, or you can just increase the number over here to add subdivisions so that our extrude matches sort of the geometry of our curve without being too distorted. So that looks good to me. So I'm just going to stop it right there and hit hotkey Q. All right. So I'm out of the Extrude Tool. Okay, the next step is to taper it. So I'm gonna get you guys through as far as I can, and then I will come around and help you individually in a little bit, because there will be a great point where you can work on your own. Okay. So hey guys, eyes up front. Yeah, we're following along. Okay, select your trunk, right, that you just created, and you're gonna go to the attribute editor. And then click on, let's see, find the right spot. Maybe. Oh yes, okay. Then click on poly extrude face 1, right? So you're going to your attribute editor, find the one that looks like this, poly extrude face 1. It has transform attributes, poly extrude curve attributes, taper curve. Okay, this is what we need. So right here, where it says taper and this poly extrude curve attributes, our taper is currently set to 1. We want to lower this so that it tapers the end of our extrude. You see how that's changing the geometry on my tree trunk? So I'm adding a taper because the end of a tree isn't as fat as the beginning, right? So I'm changing it down so that it fits thickness-wise. It kind of tapers off, okay? And then after you've done that, you can come in, and if you see any like weird geometry like this, you can grab that edge loop and kind of adjust it, move it down so it's not overlapping, right? So you should have just tapered your object. Again, you click on your trunk, right? Okay, and then you come over here to the attribute editor. It looks like this little thing at the top middle if you don't have it open. Attribute editor. Make sure you're on poly extrude face, and then come here to taper, and let's reduce the taper so that the value is less than 1. Okay, if you went the other direction, it would make it fatter on the end, but we want to make it thinner as it's going up. Okay, so something like that, kind of taper it off. All right, and that looks good. Okay, raise your hand if you're still following along. Really, really high. Give me a thumbs down if you aren't able to follow along at this point. Something happens and you're stuck. Okay, I'm going to come and help you guys in a second. I'm going to keep going with the people who are following along. Just pay attention to what I'm doing up here so that when you get to that step, you'll know what to do, okay? All right, next step is we're going to come in and make a branch. So we're going to go back to our front view, and we're going to go back to our curves, and we're going to go back to that same tool, pencil curve tool, and I'm just going to draw a branch coming off, okay? So it doesn't have to like go into the shape at all, but you just kind of want to draw a branch coming off. And then we're going to do the same thing where we hotkey Q, and then let's do control vertex, right? We're going to go back into soft selection mode, so hotkey B. And then we're going to click on one of these curves. If you can't see it in your side view, you can always do it in your perspective view too. Okay, and then we're going to use the move tool, hotkey W, right, to try and change the position of this. And I think for this branch, I kind of want it to come over here. So I'm gonna push it in that direction. And if soft selection isn't working super well for you, you can always adjust these one by one, or like a couple at a time. So I'm gonna pull a couple of these out like this, kind of have it go off in this direction, okay? But again, the main thing is that you want the line coming out to be somewhat perpendicular to the part of your tree that it's coming off of. So again, if I'm going to make a curve for this one, depending on where I want to add the branch, I want to immediately draw perpendicularly to that part of the branch first, and then I can come around and do whatever I want. But the main thing is come out first, okay, and it'll make it easier to extrude up. All right, so now that you have that second curve, let's call that one branch 1. Okay, so you should have a curve called tree base and a curve called branch 1. All right, and now we're going to do something called circulize. Okay, so there's a tool in the poly modeling area, right? In the mesh tools, we have a tool called circulize. I'll show you guys that in a sec. Before we do that tool, we need to insert an edge loop so that we have enough geometry to work with to extrude out this branch. So I'm going to go to our classic insert edge loop tool. Another way you guys can do this though is go to the modeling toolkit and the multi-cut tool. And then if you hover over the edge and you hold down control, it's going to add an edge loop for you. So you can always do this in the multi-cut tool in the modeling toolkit as well. I'm going to do it that way. Go ahead and do it that way with me, just so you can get a sense for it. But hold down control with the multi-cut tool, and we're going to hover over this area, and let's just add an edge loop. Just click once, right in the middle there. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and add another one. Okay, something kind of like that, and I'll add another one to this bottom part here. So I just added a couple different edge loops in this area, and I'll show you why I did that more in a second. But the next thing I want to do is make it so the parts that I want to extrude looks more like a circular tree branch, because I don't want to extrude a very boxy shape. I want to extrude another like spherical or cylindrical shape. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to do right-click menu, face selection, and then either click on 2 of your faces, or if where you put your line kind of split 4 faces, then you can click on all 4. Either way is fine. I'm going to click on 2 because where my branch is coming from, it kind of lines up better with these 2. And then go to Edit Mesh and Circulize. Okay? And that is going to change whatever faces you have selected to look like a circle, as close as possible to a circle as it can get, right? So again, let me show you guys that step again. So we added some edge loops, right? We did the multi-cut tool, hold down Control to add an edge loop. Or you can do the insert edge loop tool, right? Mesh tools, insert edge loop tool. Okay, either of those works. We added some extra edge loops, and then we selected some faces. So right-click menu, face selection. And then we circulized it. So we did edit mesh, circulize. All right, that looks good. So now I am going to go ahead and delete that middle edge. Okay, so I have a face. It's an n-gon right now. We'll fix those later, okay? But we want a face that is just like one circular. So if you have multiple edges in there, go ahead and delete all of them. And then have that face selected. And we're going to do the same thing. Object mode, select the branch curve. And then right-click menu, face selection over your tree again. So now all I have selected is that one face and my branch curve. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Control E to extrude. Right? So we extruded it out. And then increase the number of divisions so it follows the curvature of your branch. Awesome. Something like that. Hit hotkey Q when you're happy with it. And then let's taper it again. So attribute editor. Poly extrude face. Let's taper this down. Okay, and this is a branch, so we can actually taper it quite a bit more down. The main trunk we didn't taper as much because it was a little thicker to begin with. But yeah, we'll go ahead and taper it kind of like that. I will show you guys how to clean up the tree, but go ahead and add a bunch of branches. So go ahead and add a bunch of curves, go through the same process, add edge loops, circulize your faces, and then add branches, and keep adding branches to your tree. Go ahead and add, let's say, five more branches. Go through the process, and if you need help, raise your hand and I will come around and help you.